Conan's latest adventure comes to a close with a climactic battle beneath the ravaged city of Atlantis. But can anyone or anything stop the immortal Thulsa Doom? We're going to talk about it right here in our review of Conan the Barbarian number 12 from Titan Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Conan the Barbarian number 12. But before we dig in, let's recap what happened in issue number 11. King Cole feverishly led Brule, Conan, and the Red Slayer Guard into the bowels of a crater that they discovered in the center of Atlantis' main city. They were met with strange artifacts, ancient carvings, and unfortunately a ravenous horde of cannibalistic underground dwellers. Sorry, Chud fans, it's a little bit different, but that's the way it is. King Cole reached his destination, an ancient tomb containing a mummified corpse and a pretty special-looking sword. Only Brule, Conan, and a single Red Slayer managed to survive to that last destination. When the king decides that he's going to open up the tomb, his comrade said don't do it, but he does it anyway, and he's immediately run through by the sword wielded by the mummy after it comes back to life. And we now know the mummy is Thulsa Doom. That brings us to Conan the Barbarian number 12. Thulsa Doom takes a hold of the landed sword that he used to run through King Cole, and it's imbued with dark power, which he uses to taunt the barbarian trio that's still there and remaining. We see a flashback then to old times in ancient Atlantis when a strange meteor strikes near the heart of the city, killing several citizens in the impact. One man, a gentleman by the name of Cthulhu, and longtime Conan fans will recognize that name, dared to touch the dark stone. When he does so, evil energy courses through his veins, and he gains the power to raise an undead army and lay siege to all the lands. Here, Jim Zub is mixing mythologies by giving Thulsa Doom a backstory that intersects with Marvel's version of Conan and a little bit of Lovecraftian lore. The name Cthulhu is associated with several antagonists that we've read over time, including a Doctor Strange villain, so Zub's creative choice takes Thulsa Doom back to his Robert E. Howard roots, sprinkles in a little bit of publisher cross-pollination, but it all works together to give Thulsa Doom here, this version at least, a deeper, more cosmic threat level. So it's a much more powerful villain than any version of Thulsa Doom we've seen before. As powerful as Thulsa Doom is, he understands that time is no respecter of persons, and he hatches a plan to stave off his age as his warmongering spreads across the world. He voluntarily has himself entombed in a sarcophagus carved from a piece of the black stone, so that the stone's dark energy could fully infuse his body with power. Now that he's freed from the sarcophagus through nightmare machinations and images he's placed in Cole's mind, the sorcerer now has the ability to act in physical form, now as an immortal, and then he takes the sword up and he turns his sight away from Cole towards Brule. Using the black stone as the source of the sarcophagus as a form of evil incubation chamber is a genius plot move by Jim Zub. Thulsa Doom is evil in his lust for conquering and power, but his commitment to rule the world for all time demonstrates madness because he's willing to give up his humanity and sacrifice himself to get what he wants. This is the most intimidating and malignant form of Thulsa Doom we've seen to date. Now, I can't say that Jim Zub deserves full credit for the sarcophagus idea, but if he did, it's a genius move. If he didn't, he's placing it well and it makes it look fantastic. Now, with all the dark magic at his disposal, Doom could see his future efforts would have been hindered by a bloodline of barbarian kings, starting with King Cole. So he orchestrated this entire arc to get Cole to come to the sarcophagus, and so he could kill him at the source to end his bloodline. Cole is run through, but he's not dead. He's still too weak to fight after being run through, so Brule leaps to the attack to prevent his king from being fully killed by Thulsa Doom. Doom, however, is stopped because Conan comes into play, and he knocks back the last attack. The elephant-headed stranger who we saw earlier in the series let on that Conan can't be seen by inhuman beings now that he's been displaced through time. And Conan figures that out and quickly takes advantage of his invisibility to Doom's eyes. Did you miss that part about the invisibility? I mean, we did. I mean, remember the conversation that Conan had with the elephant-headed stranger in the Mystic, and how he couldn't see him, and he said, well, I don't really see you. I see that you have displaced the air around you, and I hear your voice. And we thought that was just kind of a weird throwaway thing. Didn't really give it the kind of obvious tip that it was part of some kind of Chekhov's gun where something comes up into play that you know is going to come into play later. So Zub snuck it in. He snuck it in sneakily, and it worked perfectly. It's like, oh, I remember that part, and it hits perfectly. So even though it was sort of like a little thing that you thought was a throwaway item, it really works to Zub's advantage here and Conan's advantage in the story. Unfortunately, that advantage doesn't last long, because as they're fighting, Conan puts his hand on the sword, and by putting his hand on the Atlantean sword that Doom is wielding, it gives Doom the ability to see Conan. So while the hero and the villain are fighting, Brule rallies Kull enough to flank Doom, hoping to overpower them from 3 different angles. Doom decides, okay, enough with the physical swordplay and physical fighting, I'm going to ascend to an even more powerful state and take care of all of this in one shot. He starts to absorb more of the energy from the Black Stone, but as we all know, too much is a bad thing, and so Doom's mind begins to come into contact with the celestial body. It's a star or a planet or something where the original Black Stone meteor came from, and it drives him mad. It completely destroys his mind. Conan takes advantage of the pause in Doom's attack, and swipe, he takes his head off from his body with a sword. Zub gets mystical with Doom's power move, a move that was meant to secure his victory but winds up destroying his mind. If it was a less capable writer, Doom's End may feel like a cop-out in the way it was executed, but Zub, particularly through Robert Delatorre's art, makes Doom's End seem like a human failure in the face of a greater evil. If you wanted an analogy that I think everyone would get, think of the Nazis and how they die at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you'll get that same vibe of villains who meet their untimely end through their hubris and greed rather than the hero's actions. As soon as Doom is decapitated, his destruction instantly transports Conan back to his original time, leaving Kull and Brule to escape the collapsing cavern and tend their wounds, presumably for more adventures in the future. The issue ends with Conan shaking off that sullenness and that depression he was feeling at the beginning of the arc, and giving him a little bit of a glimmer of hope that his path will cross with Doom's Atlantean sword once again. And if you're a cinephile, of course, you'll recognize that the Atlantean sword that's pictured in this series looks exactly like the sword that Arnold Schwarzenegger wields in the Conan movie. And that's it. That's the end of the issue. That's the end of the arc, but it's definitely not the end of the series. Jim Zub is on contract for, I think, at least a couple of years anyway, and thank God for that. So let's talk about the artwork a little bit. I've already peppered in bits of praise, but let's be 100% clear about how spectacular Robert Delatorre's art is in this issue. You get gritty swordplay, cosmic horror of the Lovecraftian sort of lore type of nature, the way it looks and feels, and tons of drama between Delatorre and the equally impressive Benito Gallego, who stepped in for a brief period of time, but his art looks just as good. Titan has just absolutely nailed the art team for what this series needs to look like, and I hope they continue for a very long time. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Where does this series fit in within the general Conan canon, especially Robert E. Howard's original source material? The big deal in this issue is Jim Zub's take on Thulsa Doom, who starts off as a character named Cthulhu. So you may recognize both names, not necessarily associating them as the same character, which is the minor tweak that I think that Jim Zub gives here. Do those tweaks represent a really big problem for continuity? No. Do they change a character enough to step on toes if you're a Conan purist? Absolutely not. It's not a big deal. And if anything, Zub is kind of paying homage to Robert E. Howard, because the unofficial story is that Robert E. Howard originally wanted the Cat in the Skull, that main antagonist there, to be Cthulhu's, and then he changed it later with an editorial revision to Thulsa Doom. So even though Cat in the Skull is originally a Thulsa Doom story, it was thought that it was originally supposed to be a Cthulhu story. So this is kind of a nice, fun little way to merge those mythologies together in a strange little way that works. It works for the story, and it doesn't disrespect Robert E. Howard or the source material at all. Final thoughts. What do we think about Conan the Barbarian number 12 from Titan Comics? It is a pristine, pitch-perfect ending to a nearly flawless Conan story. Jim Zub is firing on all cylinders, and Titan couldn't have found a better creative team in both the writing and the art to pull this series off. Zub is channeling Robert E. Howard in the best sense and the most reverential sense to the source material, and Robert Delatorre's art is phenomenal. I can't picture a better pairing and a better way to execute on this story. Therefore, we're going to give Conan the Barbarian number 12 from Titan Comics a very rare, at least for us, a very rare 10 out of 10. It was just a fantastic series, a fantastic arc, and a fantastic ending to a fantastic arc. that really gives you everything that you'd want out of a Conan story. So let us know in the comment section. First of all, give us a thumbs up if you're a Conan fan and you like what Titan is doing here. I mean, if you're a Conan fan, I can't see you not liking this series. But give us a thumbs up if you're a Conan fan either way. Let us know. And if you disagree, if you think this is not the best way to present Conan, leave your comment down below. I want to hear your opinion about this. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining, and please stay tuned for the outro for the next review.